I did not hear the car at first. The rain was coming down hard that evening, slamming against the tin roof like it had something personal against me. I was sitting on the porch, the same place I had been most of the afternoon, staring out at the pine trees as they bent and swayed in the wind. I had a mug of coffee in my hand, already cold. The rim was chipped and rough against my thumb, but I kept rubbing it anyway. It gave me something to do besides think, then see headlights cut through the trees. A black Mercedes rolled slowly up the dirt road and stopped about 20 yards from my porch. It looked wrong out here, like it did not belong. Too clean, too expensive. Like a yacht parked in a field. For a moment, nothing happened. Just the engine humming, the rain falling, and me sitting there with cold coffee, wondering what kind of trouble had found me. The back door opened. She stepped out. I am not going to say she was beautiful. That word is too easy. She looked broken, like someone held together by habit instead of hope. She wore a thin coat over a silk dress that probably cost more than my truck. Her heels sank into the mud the second her feet touched the ground. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, and her face was pale. Not scared pale, tired pale, like she had been holding her breath for years and forgot how to let it out. The driver never looked at me. He pulled a single suitcase from the trunk, set it down in the mud beside her, then got back into the car. The Mercedes reversed, turned, and disappeared down the road, leaving her standing there alone in the rain. She did not move. She just stood there, rain soaking through her coat, mud creeping up her shoes, gripping the handle of that suitcase like it was the only thing keeping her upright. I set my mug down and stood up slowly. My boots thudded against the wood, and I saw her flinch. Not much, just a tightening, like she was used to bracing herself. "You lost?" I asked. She looked up at me. Her eyes were dark and empty, and that was what hit me hardest. "No," she said. Her voice was flat, hollow. "My husband sent me here as a punishment." Quote. I blinked. She went on like she was reading from a script. "He said a month in the dirt with a man like you would teach me to appreciate my life. I'm sorry to intrude on your peace." A man like you, I knew exactly what that meant, and I knew exactly who her husband was. Everyone knew Alexander Hargrave. Tech billionaire, public hero, private monster. I had met him once years ago, before everything went wrong. Before he took everything I built and left me with nothing but this land and this cabin. And now he had sent his wife here. The rain kept falling. She was shaking now, trying to hide it, failing. "He thinks this place is a punishment," I said quietly. She did not answer. She just watched me. "He thinks you will suffer out here," I went on, "that you will beg to go back." I stepped off the porch and grabbed the heavy wool blanket from the railing. The mud sucked at my boots as I walked toward her. "He thinks a month with a man like me will teach you a lesson." I wrapped the blanket around her shoulders. She flinched again, then froze, staring at me like she did not understand what was happening. "If he wants you punished," I said, meeting her eyes, "then stay with me." Her breath caught, just once, a tiny crack in that empty mask. "Why would you do that?" she asked. "Because he is wrong," I said, "about this place, about me, and about you." I led her inside the cabin. It was small, one bedroom, one bathroom, a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in, rough pine walls, uneven floors. It smelled like wood smoke and old coffee. It was not much, but it was mine. I set her suitcase by the door and pointed toward the bathroom. "There are towels in the cabinet. Hot water works. Take as long as you need." She nodded once and closed the door behind her. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my hands, trying to understand what I had just done. The word punishment echoed in my head, and it made my stomach turn. The pipes groaned as the shower came on. The cabin always complained when you used it. I had learned to like that sound. It meant the place was still standing. I got up and heated some stew from the fridge. Venison from 2 days ago. Still good. I cut bread, poured water into 2 glasses, and set everything on the table like it was the most normal thing in the world. When she came out, her hair was down, wet and curling at the ends. She wore a sweater and jeans, her feet bare on the wood floor. She looked softer without makeup, younger, but the tiredness was still there. "Sit," I said. She did. I pushed the bowl toward her. "It is venison. If you do not eat meat, I have other things. I eat meat, she said quietly. We ate in silence, not awkward, just heavy. What is your name? I asked. She paused. Isa. She went back to eating, her hands shaking slightly. I watched her and wondered what kind of man sends his wife away like unwanted luggage. And I wondered what kind of trouble I had just invited into my life. The first few days felt like walking on thin ice. Isa barely spoke unless she had to. She woke up early, earlier than me most mornings, and sat on the porch with a mug of coffee. Wrapped in that same wool blanket, she stared at the trees like they were trying to tell her something she could not quite hear. I did not push her. Silence can be kinder than questions. I went about my routine, chopped wood, checked the fence line, fixed a loose board on the shed. She watched sometimes, not in a strange way, more like she was studying, learning how this place worked, like she was trying to understand a world where nothing sparkled and nothing pretended. On the third day, she surprised me. "Can I help?" she asked, standing near the woodpile. I handed her the axe without thinking. "Ever split wood before?" She shook her head. "It is not about strength," I said. "It is about aim. Let the axe do the work." I showed her once. She watched closely, then took her turn. The first swing missed completely. The second bounced off the log and nearly hit her leg. I stepped closer, ready to grab her if it went wrong. The third swing stuck halfway through the wood. She frowned, tugged it free with both hands, and tried again. The fourth log split clean down the middle. She froze, staring at it like it was a miracle. Then she looked at me. For the first time since she arrived, she smiled. It was small, barely there, but it was real. "Again," she said. By the end of the week, she had blisters on her palms and a neat stack of split wood by the shed. She kept glancing at it when she thought I was not looking. Pride looks different on someone who has not been allowed to feel it in a long time. That night, she cooked dinner. I did not ask her to, she just did. Pasta with canned tomatoes, garlic, and some dried herbs she found in the cabinet. It was simple, nothing fancy, but it tasted better than anything I had eaten in months. "Where did you learn to cook?" I asked. "I did not," she said. "I just tried." We ate in silence, but it was not empty anymore. It felt calm. Later, we sat on the porch as the sun dipped behind the trees. The sky turned orange, then deep red. She pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "Do you ever get lonely out here?" she asked. "Sometimes," I said. "But it is better than the alternative." Quote, "What is the alternative?" "Being surrounded by people who do not care if you exist." She nodded slowly. "I used to think that was normal," she said, "being alone in a room full of people." We stayed out there until the stars came out. I pointed out constellations. She asked questions. Her voice sounded different now, less hollow, like something inside her was waking up. During the second week, she started asking about the land. "How much of this do you own?" she asked as we walked the property line. "About 200 acres, I said. "Bought it piece by piece." "Why here?" I stopped walking. From the ridge, you could see the edge of Alexander's estate. Perfect lawns, stone walls. A massive fountain that looked like it belonged in a museum instead of the woods. "Because it borders his land," I said. She turned to look at me. "You bought land next to him?" "Yes." "Why?" "So he would know I am still here," I said. "That he did not erase me." She studied the estate for a long moment. "He thinks you are nothing," she said. "I know," I replied, "and he is wrong." Quote, that night, she told me something that changed everything. "He keeps files," she said quietly as we sat at the table, "on everyone." "What kind of files?" "Emails, photos, recordings, anything he can use to control people." She swallowed. "He has one on you." Something cold settled in my chest. "What is in it?" Quote, "I do not know," she said, "but I know where he keeps the key." I looked at her. "Why are you telling me this?" Quote, "Because I am tired," she said, her voice cracking. "I am tired of being afraid. I am tired of being small." I reached across the table and took her hand. It was rough now, marked by blisters and work. She did not pull away. "If we do this," I said, "there is no going back." "Good," she said. I do not want to go back. That was the moment everything shifted. We stopped pretending this was temporary. She moved her things into the bedroom. I took the couch. Neither of us argued about it. We worked together during the day, fixed the roof, cleared brush, patched the shed. At night, we talked. Really talked. She told me about the art degree she never finished, the gallery she dreamed of opening, how Alexander made her give it all up because it did not fit his image. I told her about the company I built, about trust, about losing everything and realizing survival can feel worse than failure. You did not die, she said. No, I replied, and neither did you. One night, sitting too close on the couch laughing at something stupid, I said, I kissed her. It was not planned, not careful. She froze for half a second, then kissed me back like she had been holding her breath all her life. I do not know how to do this, she whispered. Neither do I said. But we stayed there, holding each other in the dark, listening to the rain, knowing this was already more real than anything we had left behind. And somewhere deep down, I knew Alexander Hargrave would not let that stand. The third week felt different, heavier, like the air itself knew something was coming. Isa no longer looked like a guest in the cabin. She moved through the space like it belonged to her too. She rearranged the kitchen without asking, lined the shelves in a way that made sense, hung her jacket on a nail by the door like it had always been there. I did not stop her. Some part of me needed to see her claim space, even in small ways. At night, we slept on opposite ends of the couch, not touching, pretending that was enough. It was not. I could feel her there, hear her breathing, sense the way she stiffened whenever a car passed on the road. When she flinched, I pretended not to notice. Fear does not like being called out. One evening, while we were washing dishes together, she spoke without looking at me. He keeps his personal email separate, she said. He thinks he is careful. My hands froze in the sink. You have access. She nodded. Not his main account. The one he uses when he thinks no one is watching. We waited until after dark. She sat at the table with my old laptop, the screen casting a pale light across her face. I stood behind her, watching over her shoulder. Her fingers trembled as she typed. When the inbox loaded, my stomach dropped. There were hundreds of messages, bribes, threats, contracts rewritten in private, evidence of fraud stacked neatly in folders like trophies. He did not just destroy people. He collected them. Then Isa opened a folder labeled Closed Cases. My name was there. She clicked it. Every lie he told. Every forged document. Emails that proved I never stole $1. Records showing how he locked me out and blamed me for it. It was all there, clean and undeniable. This is it, I said. Isa's hands were shaking badly now. If I send this to you, he will know. I know. He will come for us. He already has, I said. This just gives us teeth. She looked up at me, fear clear in her eyes. But there was something else too, resolve, the kind that only comes after being pushed too far. If we do this, she said, I am not going back. I cupped her face in my hands, then stay with me. She kissed me like it was a promise, not a question. Then she hit send. The waiting was the worst part. 2 days passed in silence. No calls, no cars, no helicopters slicing through the sky. Just the woods, the cabin, and the sound of our own breathing. We did not talk much. Words felt dangerous. On the third morning, my phone rang. Unknown number, I answered. Where is she? Alexander's voice was tight, furious, barely controlled. I leaned back in my chair on the porch. Hello, Alex. You think this is funny? He snapped. Where is my wife? She is not your wife anymore. Silence. What did you do? He asked. Check your email, I said. The one from your lawyer. I heard typing, then a sharp breath. You cannot do this, he said. I already did. I will destroy you, he hissed. You already tried, I said calmly, and I am still here. Another pause. Then I added, she chose me. The line went dead. Isa was standing in the doorway. She had heard everything. Is it over? She asked. I do not know, I said honestly, but we are not alone anymore. That night, she did not go back to the couch. She stayed with me, holding on like she was afraid the world might pull her away if she let go. And I knew whatever came next, there was no turning back now. Part 3. The third week felt different, heavier, like the air itself knew something was coming. Isa no longer moved like a guest. She moved like someone who belonged. She rearranged the kitchen shelves, hung her jacket by the door, left her boots beside mine without asking. I did not stop her. Watching her take up space did something to my chest I did not have words for. At night, we still pretended. We slept on opposite ends of the couch, not touching. Acting like distance made things safer. It did not. I could feel her there. Hear the way her breathing changed whenever a car passed on the road. When she flinched, I pretended not to notice. Fear hates being pointed at. One evening, while we stood side by side washing dishes, she spoke without looking at me. "He keeps a separate email," she said. "The one he uses when he thinks no one is watching." My hands froze in the water. "You have access?" She nodded. "Not his main account, but the personal one, the careless one." We waited until night. She sat at the kitchen table with my old laptop. The glow from the screen lit her face, sharp and pale. I stood behind her, close enough to feel the tension in her shoulders. Her fingers shook as she typed. When the inbox opened, my stomach dropped. There was everything. Bribes, threats, fraud. Names I recognized, names I did not. Files stacked neatly like trophies. He did not just destroy people. He collected proof of it. Then she clicked a folder marked closed cases. My name was there. Every lie he told. Every document he forged. Emails proving I never stole anything. Records showing how he locked me out and let the world believe I was a criminal. It was all there, waiting. "This is it," I said quietly. Isa swallowed. "If I send this, he will know." "I know. He will come for us." "He already has," I said. "This just levels the field." She looked up at me. Fear was there, clear and honest. But so was something else. Strength, the kind that comes when you are done being afraid. "If we do this," she said, "I am not going back." I held her face gently. "Then stay with me." She kissed me like it was a vow. Then she pressed send. The waiting nearly broke us. 2 days passed with no word, no calls, no cars. Just the woods and the cabin and the sound of our own thoughts. We barely spoke. Words felt too fragile. On the third morning, my phone rang. "Unknown number," I answered. "Where is she?" Alexander's voice was sharp, shaking with rage. I leaned back in my chair on the porch. "Hello, Alex." "Do not play games," he snapped. "Where is my wife?" "She is not your wife anymore." Silence. "What did you do?" he asked. "Check your email," I said. "The one from your lawyer." I heard typing, then a sharp breath. "You cannot do this," he said. "I already did. I will destroy you." "You already tried," I replied, "and I am still here." Another pause. Then I said, "She chose me." The line went dead. Isa stood in the doorway. She had heard everything. "Is it over?" she asked softly. "I do not know," I said. But we are not powerless anymore. That night, she did not go back to the couch. She stayed with me, holding on like she was afraid the world might take her away. And I knew whatever came next, there was no turning back now. The weeks after the call passed slowly, like the world was holding its breath. I kept expecting headlights on the road, the sound of tires on gravel, the return of that black car. It never came. Still, I checked the locks every night. Some habits do not fade just because danger steps back. Alexander's lawyers tried first. Letters arrived in thick envelopes filled with threats dressed up as polite words. I copied the files Isa had sent me and mailed them back with no note attached. After the third letter, they stopped coming. The divorce happened quietly. No headlines. No interviews. No speeches about betrayal or forgiveness. Just paperwork, signatures, and silence. Isa signed her name without shaking. When it was over, she let out a breath she had been holding for years. She stayed, not because she had nowhere else to go, but because she chose to. She turned the shed into a studio. cleared it out, swept the floor, nailed up old sheets for walls. She started painting again. Not soft things, not pretty things. Her work was raw and loud and honest. She sold pieces online under a fake name and never told anyone where she lived. I watched her come back to life in small moments. The way she hummed while making coffee. The way she argued with me about nothing. The way she laughed, really laughed, without checking who was watching. We got married a month later. No guests, no flowers, just a judge in town and a piece of paper. She wore jeans and a flannel shirt. I wore the same boots I had on the day she arrived. When the judge asked if she took me as her husband, she smiled. The same small smile she had the first time she split a log clean in two. "I do," she said, and I believed her. It was not a fairy tale. Some nights, she still flinched when a car passed too close. Some nights, I woke up and walked the perimeter of the cabin, just to be sure. We did not pretend those fears did not exist. We just did not let them decide our lives. One evening, sitting on the porch under a sky full of stars, she asked me something I did not expect. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Regret what?" "Taking me in, fighting him, all of it." I thought about it for a long time. "No," I said finally, "but I am scared." "Of what?" "That one day you will wake up and realize you gave up everything for a man who lives in a cabin in the woods." She laughed. Not polite, not careful, real. "I did not give up everything," she said, taking my hand. "I gave up nothing that mattered. I gotcha." She leaned her head against my shoulder. "That is everything." Sometimes I still wonder if the calm will break. If one day the black Mercedes will come back down that road. If I will have to choose between keeping her safe and keeping this life we built. But for now, the cabin is warm. The coffee is hot. The stars are out. And she is here with me. She was sent here as a punishment. She stayed because she chose to. And that is the only victory that matters.